Mondays have started to feel completely different lately, and the reason is simple. Kubo has finally, and I mean finally, returned with answers that are actually worth the wait. For a long time the questions he got were either shallow or answered with nothing new, but now things have changed a bit. So after revealing extremely important details about how Kaido works in the previous week, with Squad 4 and which captains are qualified to use the healing art, Kubo then opened the door to one of the most unique Zanpakutōs in Bleach, Sakanade, Hirako Zanpakutō. This time Kubo didn't just give us a random little detail, he basically handed us a key to understanding Sakanade's true nature, how it works and why it could be one of the most effective technique if used properly. So guys, let's dive into the fan question and Kubo's answer. So this fan suggests that Hirako's Shikai depends on smelling the scent released by the Zanpakutō, and based on that, if someone had a cold or had issues with their sense of smell, or the target was a machine or robot like PG9, would the ability still work? Kubo answered clearly, yes, it works, because the activation doesn't rely on smell. You only smell something after you're already caught in Sakanade's effect. Very good. Now let's start guys with the fan's question itself. It's obvious this fan based their assumption on the very first moment whoever saw Hirako's Shikai activated in front of Sasuke Aizen. In that scene when Shinji released Sakanade, a purple mist or air came out of the blade. Shinji himself commented that there was a smell in the air, almost like he was sending a direct message to his opponent. Something unusual is happening, and Aizen at that moment reacted as if he understood the idea in a literal way. He must avoid breathing that scent to escape the Shikai's effect. But Shinji replied immediately and very bluntly, it's too late. That one line made many fans, including this one, believe that the condition for Sakanade's activation was breaking that scent, and that's where the misunderstood started. Since Hirako talked about a smell and Aizen reacted as though it was important, fans naturally assumed the ability was triggered by scent, meaning any character without a sense of smell like PG9 might be immune or at least less affected. But if that were truly the case, if Sakanade really depended on smelling for its activation, we'd be dealing with something very similar to Sasuke Aizen's Zanpakutō, Kyōka Suigetsu. As we all know, Kyōka's activation condition is extremely clear. Seeing the Shikai, anyone who sees it fall immediately under complete hypnosis, and anyone who can see simply cannot be affected at all. That's precisely why Kanami Chosen was immune to Kyōka Suigetsu, since he had no sense of sight. There was no entry point for the illusion to take hold. So these direct activation rules make a Zanpakutō limited in one way, but also incredibly powerful in another. You get a broken ability, but only under very specific conditions. But for Sakanade, totally different story. Hirako doesn't impose a real condition like smell. The scent, as Kubo confirmed, is nothing more than a side effect, a signal that the ability has already taken effect, not a requirement that activates it. Sakanade's effect spreads spiritually, targeting the opponent's perception directly, whether they breathe that purple mist or not, which means you can't avoid it by shutting off a physical sense, like Chosen did with the Kyōka. And honestly, this is the part I personally love the most about Hirako's Shikai. I mean, you can actually argue that Sakanade beats Kyōka Suigetsu in this specific category. It works on everyone, with almost no exceptions, and it can't be bypassed with a simple physical limitation, and I'm just referring to this specific point. We know that Kyōka Suigetsu surpasses Sakanade in many levels. But this aspect, the ability to bypass physical senses, is actually what Hirako can distinguish friend from foe when activating it. This ability isn't launched in a random area activating everyone. It's directed toward the specific person Shinji chooses to flip their world upside down. He controls the target directly, not who smelled the scent and who didn't. Whether it's fully mechanical being like PG9 or even character like Krillin from Dragon Ball who doesn't have a nose to begin with, once Hirako's Shikai is activated, the same thing will happen. The opponent's sense or direction will flip completely upside down. It has nothing to do with the smell or any other external sense. The ability operates on a deeper level. It targets perception itself, and that's the core of its danger. And this, guys, brings us back to a point I mentioned before. Hirako's Zanpakutō is built on a very strange contradictions. His Shikai has one of the most unique and precise abilities in Bleach, an ability that attacks perception directly. Yet his Bankai is the exact opposite. Hirako's Bankai can't distinguish between friend and enemy, and its overwhelming effect is only useful for wiping out soldiers or large groups, which surprisingly makes his Shikai more effective than his Bankai in one-on-one combat. Honestly, I think Hirako in Shikai could have been more effective than Hirako in Bankai. The issue wasn't the power, it was the way he fought. What he lacked was seriousness, in my opinion, seriousness in sharpness, or even aggression in battle. Especially since Hirako doesn't rely only on his Zanpakutō, he actually has an entire extra power. Take Aizen again as an example. Since his Zanpakutō is similar to Sakanade in type, Aizen's Zanpakutō relies on complete hypnosis, but it has no offensive power on its own, meaning Kyōka Suigetsu traps you in illusion, but to kill you Aizen must use an external attack. We see this clearly in battle. Aizen defeated most of his enemies with sword strikes only, because his blade, even though it looks like a normal katana, is backed by his Ryatsu, massive Ryatsu, turning every strike into a fatal blow. For Hirako, things are completely different. True, he isn't on Aizen's level in spiritual power, but as I said, he has actually an extra power, his hollow mask, yet he didn't take advantage of it properly. I still don't understand why we never saw Hirako activate both the Shikai and the hollow mask at the same time, because that alone could have made him one of the most dangerous captains in the Gojo 13. The mask grants him increased power and speed, in addition to long-range attacks like the Serum. And with Sakanade's perception breaking effect, it would be nearly impossible for the enemy to dodge a long-range attack. That is why I always believe that if Hirako had fought with all his potential, he could have competed on a much higher level than what we saw in the series. So guys, when we put everything together, especially in light of Kubo's clarification, it becomes clear that Hirako's Shikai Sakanade is fundamentally an ability that manipulates perception itself, not the senses. This means it does not rely on smell, it does not depend on whether the opponent has a nose or not, and it does not require physical contact with the scent. So Kubo makes it clear that this smell is only the trigger animation, not the actual condition for the ability to take effect. Once the Shikai is released, the enemy's sense of direction is reversed automatically, simply because Hirako targets them. From this, guys, we understand the real point. Shikai of Hirako extremely sharp, tactical, selective, works perfectly in duels. Bankai extremely wide and dangerous even to allies. So guys, what do you think about Kubo's answer? Tell me guys your opinions in the comments, and see you in my next video.